Well, welcome back to the Better Men, Better Ball Player podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cobb. I want to thank you for joining us, and especially those who are returning to us. Really welcome. Glad to have you if you're joining us here for the first time on our Better Men, Better Ball Player podcast, where we look at and we talk to some of the best coaches who are not only growing the game physically, but they're also invested in growing the game by being better men, by growing the game through the lessons that the game teaches us, through the failure of it. And just like our guest today, who I had the privilege of speaking to, Joel Sato from Bingham High School in South Jordan, Utah. How he goes on to talk about his advice for young coaches. You'll get to hear some of that here soon. But just how he talks about, he is this person. He is that guy that leads by example. He is that man who is a teacher first of men. And winning is a byproduct of that. But he's taken over this program at Bingham since 1993 after serving as an assistant for 17 years, then takes it over as a head coach. He's been a part of 14 regional titles, 5 state championships. Overall, he's been a part of 14 state championships in his time at Bingham. In 2014, he was inducted into the National High School Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. He served as a USA Baseball Selection Task Force. He's been a clinician at the National High School Association. He serves as president of the Utah Association. He's chairman of the Rocky Mountain District, is the liaison to the National High School Baseball Association. But Coach Sato is a first-class guy, bar none. Everybody meets him, and he's always learning. Yes, he's Hall of Fame, but he's still a first-row clinician guy. You see him on the front row, and he discusses this in the podcast, but his thing is, his challenge is being what to implement into this program and what to say, we're going to hold on to this, or this isn't going to work for us. Because he's that much of a learner, and he's willing and he's humble to try new things or be open to new ideas, as well as know that it's about his players and about the staff that he has around him. So just a incredible man. Really privileged to be able to get to know him, spend some time with him, and he really helped me get better today, and hopefully does that for you as well. So without further ado, I want to enjoy this conversation because I know I did with Coach Joel Sato, Bingham High School in South Jordan, Utah.
Us older coaches, when we first start teaching and coaching, you're not just doing one sport. When I first started teaching and coaching, I was doing sophomore football, and then I was doing sophomore basketball, and then I was the assistant baseball coach in the varsity, and then I coached in our summer program, and that. So I'm coaching all those things, and so to be able to go to a clinic or something like that, to me, even though I was just like in the sophomore program and in those other sports, I didn't feel right like taking the weekend off because I owe it to the kids that I'm coaching on that team if we practice and that I was present and that. So the only way that I was able to really start going to some of those clinics and stuff like that at that point was because at a certain point, I coached football from 78 to 93, from sophomore to varsity level. And then I coached basketball from 78 to 2000, and then took a year or two off when our coach left, and then I got brought back by the new guy that came in. So I coached until 2006, and then I went to our state association stuff all the time, but to go to some of the things out of state, I didn't feel right leaving my job as an assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
So only when I finally gave up basketball for good could I go to the BCA or go to the ABCA and man, that opened up a whole new world. I was the head coach here at 2003. So after that, 2006, holy cow, the way we did things changed because, as you know, you think you know a little bit. When you get to be head coach, you really don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of coach it the way you've been coached, or as an assistant, and you saw maybe you had some ideas about what you wanted to do if you ever became a head coach. But then going to hear these other guys from all over the country and where their programs are, we changed the way we started doing things drastically, and to the benefit of our program and the success in our program. And now the challenge is you got all this information, and even more now because of the Zoom and the virtual clinics and things like that. You have all this information that you can get, and now you got to try to sort out what can we use, what looks good, what can't we use, and you really don't want to, hey, I think I want to try this and experiment when you're getting right into your season and stuff like that. So you have to kind of figure out the challenge now is what is worthwhile, what can you use, how can you adapt what maybe you've seen to put in your program and that. So, but it's awesome to hear all these people, what they do, how they do it. And it continues to make you as a person. It's made me think, can we do these things better? And if we can, how do we do it better? Can we use what one of these guys are doing? So that's kind of what the challenge is today. And I've always wanted to learn. I've never thought I've known much about what's going on. I look at all these other people and see what they're doing and are just marvel at how successful they are and how innovative they still are, even though their programs are still successful.
Mm-hmm. So how have you been able to, I'm just curious of how have you been able to say, nope, I think what we're doing is good, or yes, we need to do this?
I look and see how it fits into what we're about. So let's say good example is the West Coast offense kind of concept, right? That kind of idea. We play in a major league size park. Our foul lines are 340, 335, or 400 to center, 370 and 380 to the alleys. The wind always blows in from left field. And so for us to be a power team, that's beating your head against the wall. So when I hear guys talking about launch angle and they're talking about, this and that as far as hitting's concerned, that's not for us. Making hard contact, yes. How to make hard contact, yes. Getting the ball in the air like the major league guys tell you to do. Hey, let's get the ball in the air. No, and then I don't have guys that are strong enough. My guys are regular guys. I love them to death, but 5'8" and 160. Okay, they're not hitting the ball 380 against the wind. Okay, so when I hear Coach Webb and some of those guys talk about the West Coast offense and how they use sacrifice bunt and how they put pressure on the defense, that's our style. We became really successful when we started to sacrifice bunt more. But then you think the teams start knowing that's what you're going to do. They play you for it. And so my thinking is, okay, they're going to play. How do we beat that? How do we adjust that? How do we do something different to beat? Because they all know that we get our leadoff guy on. Here comes the sacrifice bunt. And so they're putting on the defense to try to get the lead run around, stuff like that. So for a little bit there, you think, do we need to change? And then you just go back to say, no, you know what? Our offense, every time we get a sacrifice button down the game, we end up scoring runs, whether they know it or not. And so there's some things you stick with like that when you see the success that it has carried over the years, even though the other teams all know this is what they're going to do. You still do it. And you count on, them to make the mistake, so to speak. You're going to be able to get the butt down. Are they still going to be able to field it and throw you out? Get one out. If they don't, now we got two guys on and we're going to bunt again. Okay. So I think you measure it by you take a look at how you've been successful. And even though other people know what you're going to do, you still do it and you still gain that success. So that's kind of how we do it. If I don't know that we've changed some things. Mostly, things we use to change are in the preparation or in the practice phase. The more competitive drills. In the olden days, you threw that feel good BP.
Yeah.
Now, hell, does anybody throw feel good BP except on game day? I'm not sure. And that I like that part because I think our guys got too comfortable when they're challenged. Then you really got to go to work on the 6 inches between their ears. But now they're getting challenged like that in practice all the time. So they handle it better in the game.
Well, I like that. So now you're talking challenge BP instead of feel good BP.
Yeah,
right?
Most of the time. Yeah. Yeah. Coach Sherman, the jungle and the zoo.
That's right. Challenge BP instead of feel good BP. So when, so making that change there. So you said, so basically you'll still like the feel good, get your 10 swings kind of like during pregame, but like all your time leading up to that practice wise, you're challenging them at every BP session.
We're going to try to, or at least we're going to have 1 or 2 rounds of what they get is going to be something where they're going to be challenged. And we're going to amp that up a little bit more. Like right now we've got winter workout going on with our guys that are returning guys and incoming people that are trying out, stuff like that. So a lot of the things we're doing right now are feel good, trying to get some rhythm going, but there's still 1 day out of the week when we challenge them. We turn up the hack attack and it's above 90 velo and we get in and throw a little bit and it's not knowing what's coming. You need to try to make hard contact and, we're going to put that out there to you so that you can make those adjustments and start making them now. Let's not wait till, March 20th when we start playing and have to do it in the first ball game. Yeah. So the idea behind challenging people like that a little bit more, I always hear guys talk about, we want them to fail. I don't know that we want to go that far, but we know if we challenge them, then they know they have to make adjustments. And I think that's going to help them get better.
Well, I also like what you said about challenging the 6 inches between their ears too, and so how, especially high school kids, like at the high school level, we're always trying to, still the maturity, and kind of growing people up to deal with that adversity. How has the challenge BP and what kind of things do you start teaching to help them get better mentally?
Okay. We talk about routines, we just like Brian Kane would talk about, start out saying, okay, hey, you need to be mentally tough. But what is mentally tough? When you're challenged, you need to be mentally tougher. Everybody says that. Well, what is that? So we kind of start out by giving them the big picture. Hey, being mentally tough is being at your best when your best is needed, no matter what the circumstances are, whether you feel good or not. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, you've got to slow everything down. You've got to be able to, get a routine in where you can take a deep breath, slow your heart rate down. Okay, slow your breathing down, be able to calm everything down. Try to get it so that you are in a place where you can perform right here, this moment. Don't worry about what happened beforehand. Don't worry about what's going to take place in the future. And then as you do that, you also have to be process oriented. You have to worry about, if I get up there and say, I got to get hit, it ain't happening. I got to throw a strike. I got to throw a strike on this pitch. Probably not going to happen. But you can work on the process. I need to, as a hitter, I need to see the ball clearly. Okay. I need to be on time. As a pitcher, I need to, execute this pitch, that kind of stuff. So we try to get them to slow the game down by getting some type of routine where they take a deep breath. They try to clear their mind of everything. They focus on a focal point. They have one positive process-oriented thought that's going to lead them to some success before they either step in the box or toe the rubber to make a pitch. And then if it doesn't work out on that pitch, then we've got to figure out, or they get a bad call, or they miss the pitch that they thought they should have hit. Then they've got to figure out how to release the bad things that are going on, negative stuff that goes on, and then get back into the present moment where we can be positive. We can focus on what's coming ahead and hopefully be able to perform at their best at that point. So we also kind of take that into some stuff where, hey, life's not going to be fair all the time. You're not going to get everything the way you want it all the time too, right? So you learn to deal with that. You learn to take a step back, see what's going on, get a better perspective about what's happening, and then move on. Because as a male, you're going to be married one day. You're going to have a family. Something goes bad, you can't fall apart. You got people dependent upon you. So figure out how to handle things in the moment so that as you move forward, things will turn out better instead of going the other way where you let it spiral into more disaster coming on, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. Have you seen that, in all your success that you've had at Bingham, like, has it been that your players have been able to handle the failure?
Yeah, because we talk about that. We talk about it's been a tough game, that we lost to a rival or something like that. Again, we try to put it in perspective. I can remember when back in one of the years we're playing for the league title, and we're playing against one of our rivals, and they've got a guy that runs it up there who ended up playing at Utah and was drafted and playing pro ball and stuff. And we battled him. He shoved it up our butt early, and then they put in a relief pitcher because they were ahead. We continued to battle back and then they actually had to bring him back in to close the game out. We have the tying and winning runs on base with one out, and our guy hits a line drive, and our guys run the wrong way, and they hit into a double play. And we lose that game, which means we're not going to win the league. And after the game, our guys are like devastated, so to speak. And I go, hey, listen, did you battle? Did you compete? And did you give it your best effort all the way through that game? And our kids I think we did. I said, I really think you did. We gave ourselves a chance at the end to be successful in that game. But I'm telling you what, because we lost, the way we came back, the way we handled ourselves, the way we competed, we're going to win. We're not going to win the league, but down the road, we're going to win. And that other trophy that's sitting out there, we've got a chance to bring that back. We just have to do it one inning, one pitch, one inning, one game at a time. And then we'll be able to, see that success and that. And they kind of took that and things worked out well. Or there's other times where I'll just tell you, I had experience with one of my good friends that I played with had ALS. And, he'd battled it for 8 or 9 years, it seemed like. And we're down playing in the National Classic down in California, playing a really good team, 1-2, getting to the semifinals, and we lose 3-2. And our guys are like, they're ticked because they, had the first time we'd had a chance to play in the finals in that tournament. Normally we're 0-4, and this team was a good ball club. And I says, this isn't so bad, guys. We did lose the game. We played well. We're going to play one more here before we head for home. This is not that bad, because I got a friend who's battling ALS back home, and he's in a bad place right now. I called him on the phone and we talked. I says, put this loss in perspective of a guy with ALS. This is nothing compared to that. And they get it, because we've talked about that, and we talked about perspective and that. And so they get that kind of stuff. And so it does help when we do talk about things in life experiences like that they handle the failures that they have lots better than if it's just about the game only. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So you talked a lot about like things you've talking to the players, and you've gone over these things. Like, do you have a classroom session, or like, do you have these things like, I guess us as like almost intentional about like having these conversations, or just something you just kind of have spur of the moment on the field?
Both, Trey. We do have classroom. We don't meet every day because of the way our practice schedules kind of line up, and we have 3 levels of teams we play. We have a sophomore, freshman group, we have a JV group, we have a varsity group, but we all practice together and that. And our 9th grade group, our freshman group, isn't in our school; they're at a middle school. So we have an athletic period. So in that athletic period on one day, our sophomores, seniors, we will start practice at 1:00, and we'll go out and get started. And then when the middle school gets out at 2:15, those kids will come rolling into practice and just move on and that. But on the next day, we have everybody there because we don't start practice till after school, and all the 9th graders will be there. So we start at 2:30. We'll have a classroom session at 2:30 and that. And right now, during our athletic period before we have our season started, we don't have any 9th graders involved in our program. And we got other guys playing basketball and stuff like that. So our full team is not really together. But we'll still meet in the classroom at least once a week, because we can't get into the weight room because other groups are using that for the first half hour of that athletic period. So we'll have a classroom session and we'll talk about those kind of things as well as others. So some of it is intentional that way. And we know we have things we need to talk about in that fashion. We will utilize that. And then others are after games or, a spur of the moment when we can see that hey, here's where we get a chance to teach this lesson. And I don't know who told us this, or we might have heard it in Birmingham. I don't know, but you tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
The more stories you tell about the people that have gone in your program before and seen the examples that they've left behind, you tell those stories and it becomes a little bit more real for them because they know the players know some of those guys and you talk about them and that. So it is both. Sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes it happens after a game, whether you win or lose, and you see there's a lesson you can use and teach with a story like that.
Mm-hmm. The teachable moment as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So will you kind of take these classroom sessions just during like the spring, just during your season, or is this something you do through the fall and through your workouts?
Yeah, we do. We start when we come back to school. We're fortunate enough that we get all our baseball guys in an athletic period. We're on a B schedule, a block schedule, so we get them every other day. This year's unusual. We get them 2 times a week because Fridays here we have remedial day and stuff like that. Kids aren't in school because of the COVID situation and gives janitors a time to kind of sanitize the building and stuff. So we'll get our guys on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And like I said, when we can get in the weight room immediately, we'll just go in there and get our workout in so that we don't spend the time after school. And it's actually during certain periods of the year, it's illegal for us to stay after school to do any baseball stuff, even lifting and stuff like that.
Even lifting.
Yeah. Yep. Right now. So that was like one of our dead periods was like from November 23rd till January 1st. So during that period of time, we couldn't stay after school. We can't have any chalk talk meetings. We can meet as a classroom and go over some of the life lesson kind of things or go over some teaching items in that way. Can't do any baseball chalk talk stuff during that time. After January 1st now, we could do some put in some defense or that. But we don't do that till we have everybody in. There's no sense teaching it twice, so we just do it the one time on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, everybody I think high school wise, it's a challenge, trying to find, when you can work with your guys, and everybody has different
Yeah.
challenges to meet there. In Maryland, it's a lot different than what it is in Utah as well. So
Yep.
it's always funny how certain guys, you just find ways to help your guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. For sure. That goes probably, you guys are probably, I don't know, probably not as much as here, but right now we have to figure out how to deal and get all work done inside because there's no outside going on. We have had a couple of days here where the weather's been nice, but we can't get on our field yet.
No.
So we have to, then when the season starts March 1st, hell, it snowed here as late as April 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to figure out, okay, we're going to have to be inside. What can we do inside? So actually, when you plan out preseason practices, when you're outside, you do all your field stuff defensively and that, right? Cutoffs and relays and those kinds of things, because you're going to get a snow day or something. So you're going to end up practicing inside. So when you practice inside, you can work on pickoffs, or you can do like things you can just do, because our gym's big enough, we can almost do a full infield and that in there. So we can work on those kind of things when we have a snow day after our team's picked and that. So you do have to adjust and try to do some really different things.
Oh, for sure. No, I honestly, I like to get into that too, because I think that, there's a lot. I mean, I'm a Maryland guy. I'm really Northeast guy. So I think there's a lot of people that are still might be looking for that. Right now, a lot of guys in our area and surrounding are in a indoor facility. You see a lot of PBR stuff right now. They're in an indoor facility.
Oh, okay.
I mean, so for the most part, that's happening. So I just had Tim Held on as well. I
Oh
think
yeah,
Coach Held.
yeah.
So Tim, and so we just got into like same thing in Ohio. Like they're inside a good bit. So and I thought that was a great conversation. It's real. And I don't know if many people talk about that, but like what so what kind of like, because he gave me like kind of his bread and butter, right? And what they
Yeah,
do, and kind of
yeah,
how he's kind of figured out, his kind of bread and butter.
right.
And you, with all your experience, what have you found? And I love how you already said, I know what I'm going to prioritize when I actually get to go outside, and then
Right.
what I can do. But like, what's kind of your bread and butter, maybe practice plan, interesting ways, creative ways that you've done things in the gym to get your guys ready?
Oh man, it keeps adjusting. I'm glad somebody said some of the clinics have actually had guys from the northern areas
Right.
like to come in and try to talk about that kind of stuff. But so one way is like we have one hitting tunnel that we can put up inside, and then we can put up some sock nets and some other nets, do some front toss or tee work or things like that. So we'll take part of our gym and make it into a hitting area, and we'll take the other part of our gym and make it into a defensive area. And then what we'll do is we'll split our group in one time. You might split it into infielders and outfielders. And so infielders will hit and outfielders will have all this whole bigger area to do all kinds of, they'll get their throwing in, the throwing programs in. We can't do long toss, but we have these nets that hang down. So they'll throw it 90 feet into the, 20 feet up the net, to try to get their long toss kind of stuff in. And so they'll get their throwing program in, and then they'll have all the area to do some defensive drills. And our outfield coach, Coach Summer, is phenomenal. He'll, he understands. He goes like, hey, we can get a lot done, because how many fly balls is compared to how many ground balls go into the outfield?
Mm-hmm.
How many times do they actually? So he's got all these drills for his outfielders to get. They work on their jumps. They work on their reads. They work on fielding ground balls. They work on cutting them off. They work on a lot of footwork. So fundamental things defensively that way after they do their throwing program, while the infielders are hitting. And then we have like 45 minutes to an hour or something like that. And then we'll flip-flop the group. And then the outfielders go hit and the infielders will come over, same thing, throwing program. And they've got their individual glove drills, short hop drills. You can get fungos. They can work in combinations where they've got middle infielders working on double plays and things like that. Then we usually finish with some type of a team thing where we have a little bit of competition. We can do like a bunt scrimmage inside. We can do a first and third situation inside, and that where we can that ends up working into rundowns and stuff like that. So that's one way. Another time we can work on, say, okay, today is the day when our pitchers really needed to get their bullpens in. So everybody that's a pitcher or catcher, you're in one group. You guys go get your stuff going, your defense, you get your bullpens in. Catchers, you'll catch the bullpens, you get some individual work while the pitchers are getting their warm up in before they start throwing and this and that. Other guys, other position guys, they're hitting. And then we'll flip flop, because you got the two-way guys that are pitchers that, that need to get their swings in too. So then we flip flop. So we can get some infield and outfield work done. We can work on maybe some relay kind of stuff like that, just in the idea about where to be and kind of shorten it up a little bit and that. So you've come up with these ways to divide your group up so they can get everything that you need to do outside done inside. But you only can do the drills that you can do within the infield. Sometimes instead of doing their bullpens, we'll get infielders and pitchers as one, and we'll work on pickoffs or how to hold runners on and that, while the catchers and the outfielders go hit and stuff. So we have those ways of dividing those kind of things up. And like I said, we always try to finish with some kind of a competitive thing where we have two teams against each other, or even just got a drill called fire drill from a Oklahoma coach back in the day, where it's a multi-purpose thing with pitchers and infielders. And we'll see how many times we can get through that without making any errors and stuff. So those are the kind of things that we do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think people realize, when you're dealing with the limitations. Like I said, another challenge is, I think another thing of great coaches is to be creative. And there is definitely some, it's never the same. It's not ideal, but you got to make the best out of it. And there's some really cool things you can get out of it. Like you said, the teaching, like you mentioned about your outfield coach and about the strict fundamentals. And I think that's when we play the game in the Northeast a little different. Like it's not not that it's robotic, but like
Right.
you do get very, the just the strict fundamentals throughout of it. Because when you're inside, you're just, those are the little things you can really handle.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that either. Nothing wrong with those fundamentals, teaching those basics, and you can get to the bigger things later on.
Mm-hmm. And even and it's like, speaking of Coach Webb, that's what he's all about too. There's fundamentals. There's fundamentals.
Yeah, he was great to listen to. He's no wonder he's on top of the list right there as one of the good coaches.
Man, yeah, he's incredible. Incredible. Oh man, Coach, this is great. So I honestly like just going through. So you get outside. So like, and I know you're a teacher, you're a planner. Do you kind of shell out the week for your practice plans? Do you kind of go daily as needed? A little bit of both. Do you have like a practice index of things that you do? Like, how do you kind of take us through like your practice planning kind of routine?
Okay, it's you mentioned a little bit. Early in the year right now. When we start, we take a long time for our tryouts, probably more than anybody else. We take 4 or 5 days. I think everybody else in the state, they kind of know who they're going to have. They get tryouts done in a day and a half, and then they're ready to go. We could actually, if we start March 1st this year, and it's legal to play a game on March 8th, 1 week after your starting date. Our first game's not till March like 19th or 18th. I wait as long as humanly possible to try to schedule that first game, because I really don't want to go into a game very, unprepared. And I don't want to have those new kids into the program going into the game and trying to learn everything on the fly, like that. So yes, we will intentionally early in the season like that, before we play any games, have it written out. Here's what we're going to do. Now the players don't know all that, but we do as a staff.
Sure.
We're going to do these. We're going to cover this kind of deep team defense, these kind of individual things. And we're just going to work our way into so that we have the basic stuff down before we get to that first ball game. I don't know. We don't need 5 bunt coverages for the first game. We need to field one and get a guy out at first base. First and third situation, we need to be able to throw the ball through to second base, or we need to be able to make sure we hold the runner at third, type of deal. We need to know where to throw the ball and cut off and relay. So we're going to put in the very basic kinds of things offensively too. We're going to work on sacrifice bunt. We're going to work on a little bit of hit and run. We're going to work on, how to run the bases properly, leads, basic fundamental things offensively that we're going to need to do. As we get into the preseason and games, we'll always review the basic things, hopefully something once a week type of thing. In other words, we're going to go over our basic bunt defense at least once a week on that at some point. We're going to try to make sure we go over, pickoffs and holding runners on in either an individual situation or a combination group situation and that. Then as we get into games, if we see something that we're not doing very well, instead of going with the game plan, we'll adjust and say, yeah, we need to go back and redo this. We're not handling that very well. We don't understand. We didn't explain it very well the first time. Something like that. We'll do that. We'll take advantage. And then we'll also implement some things that we couldn't do in the first 10 days of practice. We'll start adding those things in. So, the first and third situation offensively, we won't put it in early, but pretty soon after the first game, we're going to put in the lefty pitcher, lefty first baseman kind of thing. And, we're going to leave the runner off third and get the guy picked at first and score the runner at third kind of deal. Right. So, early in the year planned out, here's what we need to cover before we get to this point, this first game. As the games start, then it's a little bit more adjustable to what we're doing well. We don't need to practice as much. We need to practice what we're not doing well, implement a couple new things here and there.
Mm-hmm. So you said that and then speaking of practice, so then you've got all 3 of your teams taken together. Does that still happen during the season as your games get rolling?
It does. We don't. So when we do have athletic period, we can get about an hour and 15 minutes of practice time in before JV game, sophomore games. They have to leave to go, or they're held on our field. Yeah. So we'll still get some game time in. And holy cow, we got schooled a little bit this fall and this summer. I had a Coach Savage team from Reno come out, and they show up at the ballpark, and honest to heavens, as soon as they got their shoes on, there was not 1 minute wasted between the time they got their shoes on and ran out and did their dynamic warm-up till the time they took pregame and that. I watched that thing go off like clockwork. They came to our field. We played them in a 3-game series and twice. Then they came and played some other teams at our field in a little tournament deal. And I was like, okay, we're wasting some time before the game. We're going to be able to practice. We take all our guys to the varsity game too, freshmen, sophomores, etc. They all dress. So we're going to utilize that time a little bit more to do some drill work and things like that during BP before we leave. We have to take buses at a certain time. So we're going to get to the opponent's field like way early before the game. So we're going to use that time in order to, break down some things with our younger guys, do more teaching and stuff like that. So, but it was a learning experience then, and we took some notes, and we've kind of organized ourselves, and hopefully we're going to utilize that time a little bit better. So yeah, our teaching's going to go with all those kids as much as we can, even when we start into games.
So you said all your whole program goes with you at every game.
Right.
Every varsity game.
Yep, we do.
So everybody travels with it. So like you got 50 kids coming on a bus?
30, between 38 and 42.
38 and 42 kids in the whole program.
Yep.
Okay. And then so they're all coming. And so have you tried where some, staying back and doing the practice thing, or is that something you've just always done? They've always just came?
No, we've always brought them. It's our classroom time too. I mean, they can learn what's going on. They get the feel of the intensity of the varsity game, the speed of the game. So their internal clock and they understand that part. I've been here long enough where when we first started coaching here, we didn't have 9th graders in high school athletics, sophomores and up. Then when the 9th graders became eligible to play, we saw when we incorporated them into the practice, so we did it right off the bat. We brought them right in. A 9th grader now, always the talented sophomore, could come and start varsity just like in any other place. But now we had these 9th graders that weren't the most talented kids. They could get into a varsity game a lot earlier. Some of them had some skills that we could use defensively, maybe a pitcher to eat up an inning or two. Anyway, they were able to learn the game, to know the speed of it, to know the intensity of it, and their opportunity to play at the varsity level was sped up because they got that experience of being at the varsity game. And then, I mean, I'm always making a point, and not all our coaches do. We have a couple of them that do it, but I will hang out with the sophomores, freshman area of our bench, or have them, okay, you guys are sitting right here by me today, so that I can look over and I can go, what pitch is this guy going to throw right here, right now to our guy? Or if you're running at first base right now, what should you be thinking of? Or did you see what just happened out on the field? What would you have done if that ball was, So we try to, that's their classroom. That's their learning time, so that they're not surprised when they finally get the chance to move up the levels and get into games and stuff like that. So I think there's more positives on doing that than negatives. We also have charts that they're responsible for, so that also helps them keep them involved in the game. They understand the value of a guy keeping the pitching chart, the value of throwing the first pitch strike, the value of winning the 1-1 count. Okay, they understand the value of a pitch count being kept low so they could stay in the game an extended period rather than, that kind of thing. Or again, you ask them, okay, what's your pitch right now? You got the guy 2-2. You see what the hitter's like. If you're out there throwing, what are you going to throw? So you try to get them to teach the game that way a little bit. So the only negative part that's really bad, practice time. It's a little bit longer to try to get everybody through practice, and you can't do I see some of the team things we've learned at the clinics where you got base runners going and things like that to try to teach the game that way. We can't do that as often as other teams do, and they only practice their 18 varsity guys as opposed to our 38 whole program kind of deal. So, but we've come up with some, okay, have you ever had two cages at home plate to hit at the same time? The two BP guys out there?
Yeah.
That's what we do to cut time down. Instead of having just one cage at home plate and have to circle all 38 through, we have two cages at home plate that we hit from and two guys throwing on the field at the same time. So come up with ways to do that too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's great. So because I'm just curious. Like I guess I'm just wondering about like you guys play 3 or 4 times a week.
Our schedule this year is sophomore level games, doubleheader Mondays, and then Tuesday is a varsity game only. Wednesday is a varsity game only. We play in 3-game sets too. We play the same team 3 times in a row. So Wednesday varsity. Thursday is a sophomore JV doubleheader. So our JVs play first and softs play after. Friday is varsity only, and then Saturday is a JV doubleheader.
Okay. So, because I'm just thinking of like this sophomore guy who's a sophomore on the soft team is what you're saying, right?
Right.
All right. And so if he plays on Tuesdays, what you said, right? No, that's a varsity game. That's a varsity game.
Sophomore on Monday.
Monday. So he would play Monday. And then so he would then go to all those other games the rest of the week.
Right.
And then I guess he plays Saturday.
Plays Thursday.
And then he just goes to the rest of the week. Now, let's say I'm a pitcher.
Right.
When does that guy get his work in to get ready for his start the next day, or the next time?
So sophomore pitcher starter on Monday.
Yeah.
So he'll Monday get his game. Tuesday comes to the varsity game. Sometime during BP or even during a pregame time period, he might get his band work in. He'll get it. We have him throw. He'll get his throwing program in. Wednesday, he probably won't do anything on the mound again. Just get his throwing program in and get his band work in. Thursday, there's a game going on. He'll probably either before the game starts or maybe during the JV game or something like that. He'll get his mound work in, a bullpen, short work. Maybe just it's short work. It's 45-foot flat ground work. He might get that in. Friday, he'll come out. He'll throw, get his long toss in. Saturday, he'll get his mound work in. He'll get his 25, 30 pitches from the bump during the JV game to get ready for his start on Monday. So our pitching guys have got all that stuff lined out. That day by day they're given, here's what you need to do today.
Right.
And then after they get in the routine, they're able to kind of do it on their own.
So as a staff, so like all your staff they're able to be there and like they're able to be there early because like what you're saying, like this all happens during pregame. Like sometimes like so the majority of like I guess your stuff when you get I could say during the season,
right?
All your teaching is a lot of times happening at pregame,
right? Pregame or those short practices before the JV sophomore games on Monday, Thursdays. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. During your athletic period, like your hour and a half.
And then or on Saturdays too. If our JV game stuff like that start at 11, so we'll have those guys come at 9, and we'll get a little bit of work in before, again, review something real quick. We should know we don't have to do, we don't have to do a half hour of reps. We should only be able to have to do 10 or 15 minutes of reps if we need to on a defensive drill or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I just think like high school is such a unique animal, because you go from playing your summer ball and you go from playing different things, but like when you put in the schedule, and then trying to run a certain program, how you do things, and just the schedule of things, it's just so unique, and you think
Right.
of just like that, like, and then as a program, we believe everybody should be there. We believe you're just going to come to the game and you're going to learn the game.
Right.
So we have these pre-game routines, and
Right.
I'm sure it also, like, I'm even thinking of like, you got to have some pretty like flexible staff members, especially because I'm not sure how early your games start, but in Maryland we're starting at 4:45. Nobody's got lights. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
So it takes a very unique schedule.
Right.
Or you got to have a teacher, and not everybody's a teacher.
Right.
So like how flexible is your staff? Or is it something you just kind of teach during the preseason? Say, hey, here's what's going to happen come game pregame.
Right. Right. Our staff, I'm lucky. We got some great. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 other former head coaches on my staff. Wow. I have 1, 2, 3 ex-players that are on our staff that know how we do things. And
they've been through it, right?
In the culture. Yeah. And so 1, 2, 3 of them are teachers, and that, so they're at our school here. So there's 4 of us here at our school. So we're all able to get out at the same time. The other couple of guys have to sacrifice their conference period at the end of the day sometimes to be able to come out to practice and that, but they do. I have one coach that's just retired from teaching a couple of years ago, so he's freed up. So he's there all the time. One of our pitching coaches, his passion is baseball. So, and he's a human resource, kind of the plant manager where he works at. So he makes his own hours come springtime. Mm-hmm. So he never misses a practice, never misses a minute of any of the games or anything like that. One of the other coaches actually teaches at another high school. He's one of the other head coaches. He was the head coach at that school. Great man, great coach, Coach Harrington. But it's a 10-minute drive across the valley. So he's got it arranged at his school that when he gets out, he gets here. He gets here a little bit later, but we cover for him. And when he gets here, he's just awesome. Mm-hmm. And then the other one's one of my ex-players again. He's a manager of his business too. So now, and he's only been on staff for like 3 years now, but he manages his schedule during baseball season to show up all the time. So typically then, if it's a varsity game, those guys can do a lot of teaching. Our games start at 3:30 and we don't have lights either. So if it's a home game, we'll get early BP, kind of like the pro guys, early BP guys that like POs and JV sophomore guys. And so they'll get a round of BP in first 35 to 40 minutes on that. Then we bring varsity guys out for BP. While varsity guys are taking BP, we got fungos going on in the infield. We've got fly balls being hit to the outfielders. So our infield and outfield coaches are working with technique. Our pitching coaches got our younger guys, like said, doing their throwing programs. And if they need bullpen work, they're getting bullpen work in. And then, like you said, now, as soon as BP's over, it's probably going to be about 2:40, 2:45. And then all the varsity guys will get in their throwing programs, and all the defensive work should be done. And some of the younger pitchers, though, if they still need to do some bullpen work or stuff like that, they'll do it now from 2:45 till game time, 3:30 and that. So we take the infield, outfield stuff starts at 3 for us at home team, visitors at 3:10, and then into the varsity game. So all that time period from 1 o'clock on, we've got a couple hours there where we are going to do a lot of teaching, and they'll get their reps in defensively, hitting, bullpens, etc.
Yeah, you got a well-oiled machine there, Coach.
Trying to, like I said, now we learned from Coach Savage from Reno. Oh my gosh, there's some time we've been wasting at her. We need to do a better job.
I forget where I somebody else had mentioned to me about Coach Savage, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him, but someone else had told me the same thing. Just extremely impressed, detail-oriented, and just how they went about their business. I heard other good stuff.
Him and Coach Roof are good buddies.
Maybe that's exactly who it was.
Yeah.
Maybe that's exactly who it was. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Wow. So yeah, I was just it's even to think that your game started at 3:30, and you've got a great staff, being able to do that. It's just that's really fortunate, and I guarantee that's why you're able to do the things you do. And because even for me, I'm thinking, wow, like kids aren't really having the practice time. They're just they're learning, but they're doing so much pregame stuff, and all your staff's there. They're doing it. They're getting just as good at work though. What you're saying. So it's really cool. Like I said, it's high school, man. It's such a unique setting. It's such a unique, the different challenges and the way you have to just manage all those little intricacies of the schedule and what works for your program. It's pretty cool.
Yep. If you could just coach and do that kind of stuff, it'd be really nice. But then they throw on top of you all the paperwork.
Yeah.
as a head coach. Oh my gosh. But I shouldn't complain. Like I said, our guys on staff, they've been so loyal. They've been so great. They're such good men too, and they treat our players with so well. And our kids learn such great lessons from them. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I wouldn't trade those guys for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, you got such a big staff. Is that something that's just kind of grown over time, like grown as you've kind of grown the program and the success you've had over time? And then how have you been able to manage that? How have you kind of, really, I'm sure you're kind of coaching the coaches now as big as it is, or no one kind of like, hey, here's our way, but, managing that.
Yeah. So when I first started coaching as the assistant, we only had, like I said, 10th through 12th grade. We just basically played JVs and varsities. Two of us, Coach Bevan and I, that was my mentor, baseball wise, and that happened we did that for 78 till 80. I think it was for 10 years, just the two of us basically. And then we added one gentleman, Coach Rasmussen, who taught here for 30 years and coached here for 30 years. He was our girls basketball coach and also a baseball coach with us. And so there was three of us for a little while. And then when we added the sophomore level as games also, we were able to add a couple more coaches. For the longest time, we probably had a staff of about 4 or 5 and we were able to divide up all the jobs, and we did a lot more. The guys that we have on staff right now, like I said, Coach Summer, who played for us and now is on staff, Coach Butterbaugh, who came from Iowa. Okay, so Coach Butterbaugh now coaches our JVs and does our infielders, and he coaches first base during the varsity game. Coach Summers, our outfield coach, he did coach our JVs for over 12, 13 years, and I've just relieved him of those duties. His family's getting a little bit older, and so he needs to spend some more time with his family and that too, with some things going on. So we released him from coaching the JV, but he coaches third base now, and does our outfielders and hitters. We have 2 guys that handle our pitchers. Coach McDonald, whose boy played for us, and so he's familiar. He's one of the ex-head coaches. And Coach Devereaux, who I coached against, actually, but Coach McDonald is familiar with our program, like you said, because his boy played. Coach Devereaux has known about our program. We played against him. Those 2 guys handle our pitchers at all levels so like Coach Devereaux will call pitches during the varsity and JV games. Coach McDonald to do it during the soft games. Coach McDonald will be in the bullpen during the varsity games. Coach Devereaux will be in the dugout. They'll have Coach Harrington that comes over from the other school. He helps with our outfielders and our hitters. So then Coach Butterball, coach the JV. He'll have Coach Harrington coach third base during the JV games. And our catching coach, Coach Stoker, who played for us, he'll coach first base during the JV games. And Coach Stoker's our sophomore coach, and he'll coach third base during his game. And our other volunteer guy, Coach Maynard, will coach first base during those things. So we all have responsibilities. And you know what? They know how it works. But I think one of the things that I think other people do, obviously other people do it, but I've given them like these responsibilities. Coach Butterbaugh, you got the infielders now. They're yours, and Coach Summer, you've got the outfielders, and Bill, you and Brandon, you guys got the pitchers, and Scott, you've got the outfielders, and Coach Harrington, and Coach Maynard will help you. Bo, you got the catchers, okay, and those guys have they're yours. Take some ownership, and they have, and Coach Butterbaugh, who really wasn't an infield guy before, but I'm telling you what, he is. I think he's seen everything that Kai and Tucker put out on that infield U stuff, and he's gone back through all the ABCA stuff, and he's come up. He's done some phenomenal drills, and he's done a great job in coaching them. Like I said, Coach Summer could coach outfield anywhere from our level to D1 level, and but those guys, you give them that responsibility, and man, they just taken it and run with it. And I get a lot of credit for the wins, but I don't do anything. I just kind of turn it over to them. And they always tease me because at BYU, Brigham Young University, back when they were really, really good, they had a guy named Lavelle Edwards, who was their head coach. He had these phenomenal assistant coach, and all you see Lavelle do is stand on the sideline with his arms folded.
Yeah.
So they call the guys on staff, they give me some crap about, you just kind of, hey, I'm all in. You guys do your job. I'll be good over here. I'll be the chief encouragement guy. And our, like I said, our outfield plays elite. Our infielders have played well. Pitching staff's done a great job. So it's been, those guys have taken ownership, and that's kind of, I guess, how you coach the coaches. They give them that responsibility. Let them run. Don't micromanage them. Let's put it that way, right? Let them do. With our pitchers, we started throwing it the first year. I haven't planned one pitching session yet. Bill and Brandon take care of that, and our guys are looking pretty good right now. So that's kind of, I think, how I've taken the approach to handle the large number of coaches, and even the youngest one, Coach Maynard, that's come in. He has really done a good job as learning a little bit more about how to handle kids, but also really investing himself on learning better techniques and how to teach it, and going about it that way.
Speaking of that, like with the younger guys, I guess wrapping things up here, we're about an hour in. Okay. Just thinking about like the advice that you would give the younger coach, or like what now, like if Brian Kane would say, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first got started?
Oh man, so much. Like I said before, when we started to think about practicing, you kind of coach how you've been coached, or how you coached under the people that you have. And, when you start out coaching, I think you're like, and you shouldn't, you're like chasing wins, right? You want to get your ball club into the tournament. You want to, and boy, that's not the way to go about it. It didn't take long for me to realize that if I do a better job of just producing and teaching young men how to be better young men, and then teach them the skills of playing the game and competing, and that everything else is going to take care of itself. The wins are going to pile up. You need to build your culture, which is about the part about teaching young men to be young men. About for when I decided to, and I didn't know anything. We started a little bit before I met Brian, but Brian put it into focus when he said, you got to have your core values. You got to have the pillars of your program. I'd kind of started saying, we want people in our program to do things with excellence. We want to do things with class. We want to do things with courage, and we want to do things with excellence. And so excellence was the big key, doing the best you can at everything you're trying to do, classroom, baseball, family, If you're religious, go to church, do all the things that you're doing the best way you can and conduct yourself with excellence. And as soon as I shifted the emphasis to that kind of stuff, the baseball got better.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd have known that, I'd have started right off of that. That's the building of the culture thing. And then the next thing is you think you got it set, and you have to keep working at that constantly. It's always changing. It's always going to be moving in a direction. You have to keep your, I don't know what, not, you don't want to keep your thumb on it, but you have to keep an eye on it to make sure it's going in the right direction, and you have to adapt and change. Football coaches could grab a kid's face mask 15 years ago and rattle his chain a little bit to get him going. You do that now, you're going to get fired, right? You've got to, we want to teach a kid to be tougher, we can't get in his face and yell at him. You've got to come up with other ways to try to help them learn how to toughen up. In our area, used to be farm boys and miners working in a copper mine. Now it's all, business people, doctors, lawyers, upper class people who don't get their hands dirty. Yet we got to go out and compete and be tough.
Right.
So we got to figure out different ways to do that. So if I'd have known the part about building the culture, building young men first rather than chasing wins, that's what I would tell a young head coach to do. And as we bring those younger coaches into our program, the first thing is treat the guys the right way, teach them the right way to do things, off the field and on the field, be a good example on that. And, you'll learn the skills later. We'll help you learn the techniques. We'll help you learn the mechanics. But you need to be a good example and treat these young men, help them grow as young men first, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah. That's amazing. That was well worth that over an hour we just spent. Oh my goodness, that was awesome. I guess one thing, because it's culture, and some people just don't know how to start that, and some people just don't know how to get into this core covenants, like we just talked about with excellence, being courageous. Those are phenomenal. And I would imagine that everybody in your program knows what they are.
Yep.
So what have you found, like the best way that you said to teach that? You are a teacher, a great teacher, right, planner. How do you go about teaching something when someone would say, well, they might not know how? Yeah.
Well, you introduce it to them. Okay. Here's the direction we want to go. And you have to do it differently sometimes too. Like you could lay them out how you want them to, and probably, well, maybe not. I just think you can lay them out what you think you want the direction to go, but then you have to have the buy-in and you have to have the kids do it. So we've done it in a couple of different ways. We've allowed them to take some ownership over what they think some of the core values should be. This year, for example, they want to come up with a word that characterizes what they want people to see within our program. So we're going to do a little exercise here, probably this week, where all the guys that are returning, each of them are going to come with this word that they're going to say, this is what we want if people watch us play, if people see our program, this is what we want them to see our program represents, okay, or what our program is about. And then they're going to have to say that word or present it. Then they're going to have to defend it. And then we're going to get 28 different words, and then we're going to vote on them. Okay. And as they hear each other defend it, not all of them are going to get votes. And so eventually we're going to just pare it down to where we get to 2 or 3, and then they've got to defend those, or other people are going to have to defend their word or whatever. We're going to end up coming up with one word. It's a kind of a John Gordon exercise. So that he's done before. Right. And so that's one way you get them to start building an idea about what they want the culture of the program to be like. If you already have some core values or some pillars of the program, for example, ours is a TEAM with a little X in the middle between the E and the A. So T is for tradition, because we've had this baseball program going around since 1933. E is for excellence. The little X between the E and the A is like a time signal in a thing. So that's like synergy is what we do. Then we have an A for attitude, and an M is something we have around here because we're the Bingham Miners. It's called Miner Magic. And we've had them break into groups and take one of those core values, and then they have to present on it. This is what it means to us. This is what it means to our team this year. This is how tradition fits into our baseball program. This is how excellence does, etc. So we've done things like that so that they know what it is, and then they get to put their spin on. They get to put in what it's supposed to look like to other people outside the program, and that. And then we're gonna put it on our jerseys. We're gonna put it on our T-shirts so that they know. And then there's signs up in our clubhouse about excellence, or about attitude is a decision, about what minor magic is, which is something that's right up above the door. That's the last thing they touch before they go out. Things like that. So there are things to remind them, but we also use those classroom sessions to also talk about, here's what it is, and then tell a story about a kid that shows what this attitude is supposed to be like, or what it means to be excellent in this area, what it looks like.
And what you're talking there is like the continuation, like, okay, here's how we started, and here's how you need to breathe life into it all throughout the year. Right.
Correct. Yep. And then they take ownership of it, and it's up to them to pass it down. As the years have gone on, a lot of our guys have done a good job passing it down. So everybody that comes into the program, the ninth graders, and like you get this, you hear it from the parents and that of the new players that, we wanted hopefully he made the team because we know what you guys do within your program about how these young men are supposed to behave and what's expected of them and things like that. So over the years, we've been fortunate that we've done some things the right way. We keep trying, hoping we are. And so it's carried over that way.
That's phenomenal. No, this is great stuff, man. And again, another very unique thing about high school sports too, and people try, and I know people do it the best they can, outside during the summer, travel and different things like that. But there's to be able to run a program, the continuous time, having the schedule, building those things into your program, it's again another unique thing about a high school program.
Yep. Those guys that are high school coaches, we don't get to recruit the guys. Well, most of us, we get the guys that show up right, and we got to do with what we can with them, and we're locked into certain ways of having to do things because it is a high school program, and very very few of us can fundraise the money like Coach Borba does at Orange Lutheran, where they raise $200,000 a year to do whatever they do. We all got to. I don't know what you want to call it. We all got to do like my dad is a farmer. We just got to make things up on the fly as far as equipment is concerned, and things like that. So the guys that do a great job coaching high school, there's tons all over the place. Right. It is a unique thing, and my hat always goes off that. You have to just have a lot of respect for those guys that are doing it. That being us doing it, we know what that's like. So whenever you run into another high school coach, it's always what they're going through. And so very, like I said, very unique situation, but the guys do it real well. It's pretty awesome to watch them, how they do it.
It is. And you're definitely one of those that do it well. And I'm really happy that, we were able to get on and make this happen, Coach. And, even though the whole West Pacific Coast, Pacific time, Eastern time, but we made it work. It was really great. I actually talked to RJ Farrell today about doing it. And that's the hardest thing for us is just kind of coming up with that time to make it work. But man, Coach, I just can't thank you enough. If there's anybody else that might want to reach out to you, talk more about your culture and talk more about the creative things you're doing inside, what might be a way to reach out to you?
Oh, again, I was mentored by some really great coaches. And so my job now is to do the same thing. We're an open book. If anybody wanted to come or they got questions, we'll share whatever we have with them and that. My email address, and you can post it on your notes or whatever you do with that kind of thing, is you have it. It's joe.sato@jordandistrict.org. My cell number is 801-842-6150. And just send me a text message. And I'm not smart enough to do the Twitter or Instagram thing yet. that stuff is still not quite. And anyway, as a teacher, some of those Twitter stuff and that, I'm probably best to stay clear of it. It just keeps you safer for the most part. So,
Hey, you also might be another staff job too.
That's true. Hey, I tried social media guy, right? We can use that. Publicize.
That's right.
One of my guys is supposed to take care of most of that. He's doing a decent job, but he's getting. I'm putting more responsibility on him on the baseball side, so you might have to do something like that.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was talking to Tim Hill. Tim Hill was possibly. He's talking about they started they just put a volunteer thing out there for like a data now because they have hit tracks. So he's got some data. So he just threw a thing out there and said, "Hey, we're looking for a volunteer data analysis guy." He had to hit interview. He had to interview.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
got a volunteer to do it. That's looking to kind of do it as a career right out of college. So you'd be surprised. I'm sure, especially when people want to work with you. People are going to want to come work for you. We can't. We've never been able to pay anybody much, so we try to give them a few perks here and there. A couple of T-shirts or something. We're all in. That's right. That's right. Oh man. Well, Coach, it's been fantastic. Again, I knew it would be. Especially after Alabama talk, and I couldn't wait. And I will definitely be in contact. For sure in the future. I can't wait till our next time.
Great. It's been a pleasure. It's really humbling to be. I looked back and saw the people that you've had through this thing. Like I said, I'm not sure I'm in some of the class of those guys. I've just been around a long time. Some of those coaches you have on there, I've kind of researched a little bit on there. You've done your homework, and you've had some really phenomenal coaches. The people that have viewed into the podcast have probably been really enriched by a lot of the people that you've had on here, and you're doing a great job. I appreciate you. Like I said, very humbled that you asked me to do this, and hope people I'm sure they're learning a lot, and you're doing a great service to baseball on that. So appreciate you too.
Coach Joel Sato, just killing it. Some great stuff just from really even just finishing it strong there with his culture. I mean, we finished on a high note as he goes and talks about his culture and creating and breathing life into the kind of people that they want their program to be about. We breathed life in that, and really it finished it up in conversation on a strong point. Really kind of bookending really the conversation. We kind of started with the mental stuff, and he finished it wrapped it back around with creating good young men and how the wins become a byproduct of that, and the wins just fall into place, and that baseball became better as they focused on their culture and being excellent and courageous. And they talked about his team acronym and how they're doing that. They're creating a one word, even through that, then they're creating a one word that describes them and breaking it down and continuing to argue. You think about the real life skills that bringing out into people as they continue to do that, and they do that. That will go beyond the game for guys to be able to play for a coach like Coach Sato, and is incredible. And I do think these kind of values and things like that can be brought in anywhere. I think we need to challenge ourselves where if I'm not playing, I need to find that. I need to find someone that will care more about than just how I'm throwing a curveball or how far I can hit a baseball or what my 60 time is. So it's just, and Coach Sato is that guy, and is growing the game the right way, and is growing men, and at the same time can talk baseball with anybody. You can absolutely hear that. He's running practices, being creative when he's got 10 inches of snow outside, and not able to play on the field when it's snowing up until April. And so you don't become part of 14 state championships without knowing a thing or two. And I think it's great advice. He gave some great advice about growing his culture. Gave some great advice on practice planning, and just really fortunate to have the time to talk to Coach Sato and the lessons from a Hall of Fame career. And he continues to be at the forefront. He continues to ask questions. He continues to be a learner, and is extremely humble and has great people around him, and he knows that it's about those people and about those works, about those kids that get those things done. So, he's a true servant, great leader, great man. So, again, Coach Sato, if you did not get that information, please feel free to reach out to him. He's a first-class sharer. It's joe.sato@jordandistrict.org. He also gave his cell phone in the episode as well. So please like it. Please share it. Please share it to somebody. Coach Sato is a great man. Like I said, well-respected around the country. And really cool to have a guy from Utah to be able to speak from him. And just funny how this year ended and this year is gone to meet a guy like Coach Sato, who I've seen from a distance. But to get to talk to him and have a guy speak your language and to see a guy that has been doing it that long and continues to learn and ask questions, and it's inspiring. It's inspiring, and it's great to hear, great to see, and it's a great thing for our game, great thing for our kids. So, great thing for the next generation. So, please continue to like, share the podcast, and if there's anybody that you think that is part of this community, a part of the growing the game the right way, and all the great things that our game shows people beyond the lines, please reach out to me at bettermenbetterballplayers@gmail.com. DM me on Twitter at Coach3Cobb or BMBB Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Be happy to reach out to him. We'd love to get him on the show, touch base, and just talk some baseball. See how we can help and keep growing the game. So, until next time, keep getting better.